Hi everyone, this is our last session, session 4. I would like to announce one thing first. Because yesterday there are lots of sound interruption. So today, if you also participated in yesterday, you'll find one setting is different. From today, every time when you are out and back to the Zoom meeting or when you were dispatched into different breakout rooms, you'll be automatically muted. But when you want to talk, you can always unmute yourself. This is because we would like to minimize the sound interruption. So that's why we do that. And if you are in the room and you can hear the music and also you can hear me talk, could you type in the chat box so that I can know that our announcement is clear? Yeah, and our tech staff is also telling everybody that our event will start at 7 o'clock. 大家如果听得到我的声音或听得到音乐的话，可以在 chat box 那边就是留个讯息让我知道一下吗？有人的名称就叫恩恩，好可爱。Is there anyone in the room? 可以，好，谢谢恩恩。Monica, 你的头像很可爱。Is there anyone who's not from Taiwan? Okay. Have all of you had your dinner? 大家吃晚餐了吗？
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Is that Jane? Jane who was responding to me?
No.
No, not Jane. So whose voice is this?
Yachi.
Yachi.
Some of them haven't really had their dinner first, but some of them haven't.
OK. 你是老师吗？
Yes.
Got it. All right. So will they be able to have complete their dinner? 他们来得及吃完吗？
Probably.
Hopefully. OK. 辛苦老师了。And I would like to know, Huan Ying was also in the session in the afternoon, right? Okay, everyone, I would like to know if you can use the function, the reactions at the bottom bar. Hi, Ada. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Joyce. Hello.
Ida, did you have time to have your dinner?
Not really.
Wow.
But it's okay. But it's okay. No problem.
All right. Thank you.
So I know that you will have a warm-up exercise, right? So I will just hide myself, and I will come on again maybe in 10 minutes. Okay? Or you can just call me.
Sure. Well, actually, the process is that the warm-up activity will take like 15 minutes. So you can come back a little bit later. And then after that 15 minutes, there'll be 5 minutes for Adler to introduce you. Adler also already turned on. Sorry, I forgot to turn on my camera. Adler is also on here now. Yeah. So Adler, would you like to add any information? Okay, he's preparing. And yeah, you can. Adler, are you ready?
I think it's not going to take 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It will be like 1 or 2 minutes, but 5 minutes for buffer.
So
just in
how,
case there are any tech issues or anything else.
yeah,
Okay,
and
that's
how,
fine.
what time? Sorry, Aida, please.
No, I think it's fine. I think I'll just go and arrange my my setting a little bit. All right. So I'll be back soon.
Okay.
Sure, awesome.
Adler, would you like to suggest an exact time for Ada to come back, or?
It's okay. I'll be on. I'll be on. I'll be on.
7:10.
alright.
7:10.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ada.
All right, as it's already 7, let me guide you all through some of the reminders. So, as mentioned in our pre-event reminder, there is a bulletin board and free exchange zone. We encourage you all to sign in so you can keep connecting with each other after the event. Also, there are a lot of shortcuts to, for example, if you don't know what to do now, what's happening now, you can do it there. Also, you can introduce yourself to connect with each others. And there are 4 open spaces initiated already. So in the end of this summit, there will be half hour for you to consolidate your learnings at open spaces based on more specific topics, because this is a pretty broad conference, because we want to broaden your horizon and to encourage you to become more systemically aware and also become more holistic. Of course, we want to bring this holisticity and also systemic awareness back to your own specific contexts. So feel free to join the open spaces. And if you want to know more about the speakers, here is a list we compiled, a reference list. Also, if you are a teacher, would like to apply for continuing education units, you can see how you can do that in this link. All right, so before we start every session, there will be a warm-up. So please go to, if you are in the bulletin board, you should be able to see the link here, which is instructions for the World Cafe, or our staff should be sending this link to our chat box immediately. So when you go to the folder Documents for Co-Creation, please go to Session 4, SOCIALpath. And later you will be randomly assigned to group A, B, or C. I would like to, before we officially start, I would like to invite if there's any volunteers who would like to be the chairpersons for each group. Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute. If no one's volunteering, I'll have the cold call, as in many in many online learning contexts. All right, so I would like to invite Sifan to be the chairperson for Group A, and I would like to invite Li Hui-Hong to be the chairperson for Group B, and also would like to invite so many of them, if you are from Zhongli Guozhong, can you turn on your camera, because you're speakers. I'm not sure whether you're speakers or participants, so I need to know, otherwise I might assign you to become the chairpersons. Hello.
Hi.
All right, so I would like to invite hold on a second, sorry.
How about
We have
is, let me see.
all right, so how about Reza? Can you be the chairperson for Group C? since you participate in most of our
Okay.
sessions.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
But I will lead maybe 1 hour later. But now I can help.
Okay. Okay. So maybe you can find another one to take your place after you leave. All right.
Yeah. Yes.
Find a group member to take your place. All right. So so the first thing to do in the workbook, once you open the workbook, first please assign persons. Here you can see in general tips, please assign 3 persons first who is responsible for creating a scribe or making records in this workbook. Of course, he or she should not be the only one writing in this workbook, but he or she should be responsible for inviting everyone to write, co-create, and have one person to remind each other your time, and another person, the briefer, to be responsible for copy and pasting the the summary that you co-created in the final stage of this session. And after assigning these persons, please go to task 1 to place your name in a table. After you place your name in the table, please write down your purposes and expectations. It shouldn't be too long. You can put them in keywords or simple sentences. And after you write down your purposes and expectations, go to task 3, which you will have to observe and look at what your other group members wrote and see if there are any shared commonalities, if there are any keywords that emerge from such writing, and have them written down here. And finally, before we end your warm-up session, please try to discuss with your teammates to see if there are any focus topics that you'd like to discuss to our speakers today during your World Cafe sessions, each for 10 minutes. All right, I hope this is clear. And does any of you have any question? If you have question, you can raise your hand. If I don't see a question in 10 seconds, I'll ask Jiaqian to start sending you all to breakout groups. Oh, by the way, Chungli Guozhong, could you?
Adler.
Hey.
I'm not sure which is Zhongli Guozhong speaker, so I just set them all into the group. If you got it, just tell me. I will put her out to the main group.
I actually don't know. So that was the thing I was going to ask. Yeah, Zhongli Guozhong should write down their name, their Zhongli Guozhong basically on their names, but let's see.
Or what's the teacher's name?
Li Yaqi, I think.
对，他们的老师是李雅琪，然后是用英文全部小写。
OK， 我找到，我私讯他。
好，
那我先把老师移出来好了。
好，然后我建议你那个把玉轩徐移到 Group C。
玉轩到 Group C， 我让恩如在 Group B，OK 吗
？OK。水放很强，所以感觉他在 Group A 应该没问题。我
要去 Group C 待一下，因为我协助我录音的朋友还进不来，我先去支援。
好。
如果没有组长的话，我有点忘记他刚刚说我们这段时间要做什么。
Adler 你有要去的 group 就告诉我，
我自己进去应该没问题吧？
应该是可以的。
我们是要去那个，
那你记得新加入来的人就把他们分进组别里面去。
好。But 我觉得应该要先跟中立国中的老师确认一下事情，但我没办法把他拉出主会议室。I have no idea。
你没办法拉出来是不是？
对。
糟糕。你有
我可以
私讯他？
私讯他。
私讯了吗？
正在。
雅琪老师想说，最后在就是孩子们他们发表之前，有没有什么要确认的？虽然我一边还在赶一些东西。
应该是还好，他们应该已经有尽量就是他们有准备一些，如果他们要发问的时候，他们也有准备 PowerPoint，就是尽量避免那么紧张。
我想问一下，为什么突然那个 participants 都不见了？
哦，因为他们现在在那个 breakout groups 里面，他们现在在 warm up。OK，
行。
对，你如果有兴趣，当然也可以潜水进去听听他们在做什么。
我还是休息一下。
好，休息一下，没问题。
跟今天都是桌子。
如果有需要，也可以点他们回答，可是他们可能比较紧张，他们下次准备一些问题可以发问，这样子。
好啊。
雅琪老师，我想要跟你确认一下，就是今天负责演讲的同学名字叫什么
？7位同学的名字吗？
对，负责7位都会一起讲吗？还是有主要负责的？
他们都会讲。那组长是
Ashley，OK。
老师，我想邀请你们全部整个 team 的就是你们所有 team 的人在前面都写这个你们叫7B 是不是？还是就是你们就所有同学前面还有包含老师，你们就在这个7B 那边写一下，
就是比较好辨识是吗？
对。
好。
不然老师你告诉我他们分别叫什么名字，我直接从后面帮大家改比较快。
国中很多人在 Group A。我要叫他们出来吗？还是
不用，没关系，我先帮他们改名字，不然我没办法确认谁是谁。Ashley，OK， 然后呢
？Maxine，
好。
Monica，OK， Joanne,
Joanne,
Amber,
Amber.
Jane,
OK，
Max。
好，
已经7个吗？
我要请他们就是离开原来小房间吗？还是就？
哎，sorry，少一个 ，Ashley、Monica、Max、Maxine、Jane、Joanne，还有谁 ？Amber 是吗
Amber 是 Amber。
？OK，OK。所以是7位都会轮流发言，对吗？
是的。
好，了解。OK， 那我们1分钟后会结束分组会议，然后就会回到主会议室哦。Adler, everyone's back.
All right, so back.
Nope.
All right, so let me share screen so I can introduce this section. So welcome everyone back to the main room. I'm the host of this session, this 2 days of conference. My name is Adler Young, and I'm the curator of TIES this year. Right now, you're in the session SOCIALpath, the tides and ties of the collectives. The idea behind this session is that we believe it is important for us to comprehend our entanglement with our social context and structures. And right now, there is a huge momentum or narrative going on, the debate between that whether humans are rational or irrational, and whether the will of the people will lead to constructive results, or whether that will lead to a Trump, like a era that represented by Trump or other populist movements. Also, it is important for us as changemakers to understand the roles that communities play in the change-making process and the holistic wellness of changemakers. So it is our honor to first invite a veteran in creating such community and building ecosystems. She is Ada Wong from Hong Kong, representing an expert view from the Eastern cultural context. She is, she has led a varied career as a solicitor, educator, social innovator, and civil society figure. She is a staunch advocate of social innovation, creative education, and cultural development. Ada founded the Hong Kong Institute of Contemporary Culture, the Li Shaoqi School of Creativity, the Make a Difference Initiative, or MAD, and the Good Lab. Since 2016, Ada, in her capacity as the director of Innovators, she led and designed the InnoPower Teacher Fellowship, an annual program to build the innovation capacity of teachers in Hong Kong. Since 2016, Ada has been invited by the Mayor of Seoul, Mr. Park Won-soon, to join as a member of his advisory group for Seoul Innovation, together with social innovation leaders from all around the world. Ada was elected member of the Urban Council of Wan Chai District Council between 1995 and 2008, with the last 4 years as the chairperson of the Wan Chai District Council. She received a bachelor's from Pomona College in the United States, a master in education from the University of Hong Kong. She is honorary fellow of Hong Kong Baptist University, Lingnan University, and the Education University of Hong Kong, respectively. In her talk, and also the panel and our workshop later, I think it will be inspiring to explore these following questions with Ada. What's the role of culture in bringing social change, and what are the important aspects to consider when creating an ecosystem for social change? Without further ado, let's welcome Ada Wong.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your invitation, Adler. It is, to me, very interesting to speak in English to mostly Taiwan friends. And, I do miss Taiwan a lot because, I have not been to Taiwan now for almost 18 months. And I do hope that the pandemic will end and then we don't really have to use Zoom to see each other. Today, I'm told that I have about 35 to 40 minutes. And Adler would like me to talk to you about what I do. So what I want to say, first and foremost is that I have done a lot of things because I am of a certain age. So when I tell you about what I do, let's say in the next 30 minutes or so, I hope you don't just look at the projects and you just don't think of the numbers of people who have participated in the projects. But if you can make a note and jot down and think about the why. Why have I done what I've done in the last 20, 25 years? I think it is important to think about the why and the how rather than the what. But of course, to introduce myself and to, tell you a little bit about my journey, I will have to tell you a lot about the what. But then I hope that in our discussions today and in the Q&A session, we can all discuss the why, why and the how. I would say, at the beginning, that I guess I'm quite conscious in creating an ecosystem of social change in all the work I do. So, what do I mean by, building a new paradigm or how to effect social change? That is the issue that I would like to talk to you about. So without further ado, let me share the screen and I'll start from here. Now, I guess you can see my screen, right? I will do a full screen here. So I usually have a lot of photos in my PowerPoint, but I think this slide is actually interesting, just to show you that I'm quite a crazy person. I'm a lawyer, I'm an educator. I call myself also a social innovator. Some people call me a creative entrepreneur, but I think in essence, I'm a civil society catalyst, which means that I try to ignite fires of innovation. So I will start a fire here, I will plant a seed there to make sure that the ecosystem is very diverse, it's very rich. And then, I do hope that all these seeds and all these fires will grow. I'm not going to repeat all these things I've done, but just to highlight, because of time, I think I can only tell you the 3 important things that I've done, not saying that the political career is not important, but that is in the past. In the past, for about 14 years, I have been an elected person in urban council and district council. It was there that I understand that there are a lot of social issues, and the government alone is not enough to bring innovation and changes of perspectives to these social issues, and they are not very responsive either. So, I always ask myself a question as a citizen: how can I create something that will bring about social change in the future? And what should that social change look like? And to me, the social change should start from the bottom up, should start from, the individual person. And so I would like to highlight to you the 3 organizations or institutions that I've built. The first one is the School of Creativity. The second one is Make a Difference Institute. And the third, a little bit about the Good Lab. So, I have, so we just to remind you that, and, I've been leading multiple careers, and they are sort of parallel. And so I want to say that is that, for you, you might call it a slash. Nowadays, the young people, they do a lot of things at the same time. They have different careers. I'm sort of old, so I'm an old slash. So why don't I share with you something about the school first? And here it is. I've got another PowerPoint. So, this PowerPoint is a little bit long, but I do hope that I can show you, have a feel of what this school looks like. Sorry, it is in Chinese. I've asked the school for a PowerPoint, and they gave me a Chinese one, but I think it is all right that I speak in English and you read the Chinese text, all right? So the Hong Kong Institute of Contemporary Culture is a nonprofit in Hong Kong, which I founded. And 16 years ago, we believed that Hong Kong needs a very unique school. Hong Kong needs an alternative school that is quite humanistic, that responds to the needs of students, and that has the ultimate objective to nurture creative talents to... Yes, Adler?
Yeah, are you showing the other PowerPoint? Because we still have the first one.
Oh, I see. But I do have the, do I have to stop share first? I thought I changed it already.
I see. You probably have chosen this to be the one that you share.
Okay, so should I unshare?
Maybe unshare and reshare.
I'll stop share. Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for reminding. Things are quite interesting with Zoom. Sometimes you do exactly. Do you see something different now?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, here we go. So this school is a secondary school. It's a Gaozhong. It's a senior secondary school. At the beginning, we don't really have a built campus yet, so we borrowed a one-story school campus, and this is the I'm not going to say very much because I think the pictures can tell a lot about how students learn and what is the atmosphere like. This picture is from the old school building, and then the second year we've got a brand new campus, so we moved in there. We teach art and culture and design, and we really want to push creativity to its boundaries. We hope that students can discover themselves, discover the world, and discover knowledge happily. And these are the keywords of our school. We do believe that in this age of artificial intelligence, I think as human beings, we do need more imagination, more innovation, compassion, etc. And we value differences. We are very inclusive. We are quite autonomous. We give students a lot of space to pace themselves so that they become, the owners of their own learning. But to others, it means that they have got a lot of freedom. They might not be disciplined enough. So that is the outer part that people see about the school. We have a lot of cross-sector collaborations with different art and culture collectives. Now, because this section is about collectives, it's about how to build people who would not, become bad leaders, how to have more humanistic culture in our society. So, think about what I do and see how we can, plug in, into this whole collective spirit later on. So we treasure life. We live together. We grow with the students together, so that they together with us build a very pluralistic civil society. And art and culture is actually the starting point of all the things that I've talked about. You can see that we don't really have punishment in the school, and these are the development principles of our school. You will find it very strange coming to Taiwan. For example, we want students to care about people and things, and we want them to respect individual and the collective's rights and obligations, and to have an open attitude, when they face differences. So you don't really have punishment. Let's say, you will be kicked out of school after you fail exams or whatever. This is the learning space. Each year we have a lot of performances. So this is a school for arts and for culture. The space is conducive to a lot of, I would say, quality learning, and also 平等. So it's really an equal space where teachers and students, they form a circle and they learn together. It is also an open space where we have a lot of exhibitions, and where we collaborate with a lot of artists, whether they are from Hong Kong or elsewhere. We also have outdoor space where we have very spontaneous gatherings, such as shows, band shows, fashion shows, and also a book fair each year, before we had the pandemic and the lockdown. And we have a very nice looking library, although students don't really read a lot of books these days. And we have an extremely exciting sports day. Now, is this sports day or is this a costume show? It's a cosplay show. It is both. So the students invented this event on their own, and they have cosplay together with sports day together. Very delightful school life. So every year in Chinese New Year, everybody dresses in red and they come back to the school and take a big picture. So this is, because it is Gaozhong, it is senior secondary, we have, I would say we have a diverse curriculum catered to their needs. It is not like the exam-oriented system, so we have basic creative courses, we have lifestyle courses, we do have the basics of Chinese, English, and math, but we also have inquiry-based learning, experiential learning. And we also, have a very wide foundation of the arts, which encompasses music, visual arts, design, technology, etc., etc. We really want students to learn by doing, and to understand, the human and social compassion in our life. So we bring our students to the community so that they also learn from the community. Some of the content, which I won't talk too much about. So these are the creative profession-oriented courses, which we designed ourselves. You can see that it encompasses all kinds of art and design, with film and video, performing arts, and spatial studies. And with the deepening of studying in the 5th year and also in the last year, we can offer our own diploma in the creative arts. Whereas, the other students in Hong Kong, they have to do a Hong Kong diploma of secondary school. So much equivalent to your Gaokao. I think, I will show you a couple more photos, and then I will perhaps stop and go to explain to you or introduce to you another organization I founded. You can see that students do enjoy learning. They learn by doing. They have a maker spirit. We are a very inclusive community. For example, one of our teachers, he's an anthropologist, and he would invite South Asian young people from the community to play with our own students. We also do mindfulness in education. Where do our students go? I think our students go everywhere. Some of them come to Taiwan for university, and others would go to England, they would go to Holland, the Netherlands, to further their studies. And they win all sorts of prizes, and sometimes they become entrepreneurs and they become makers, and they find their own pathway. And we do support them to find their own pathway, although that pathway might be a little bit less trodden than other pathways. And we do encourage them to participate in civil society and civic affairs. In Hong Kong, not that many young people care about climate crisis and climate change, but our student, she's now in Taiwan actually, she is very, very concerned, and then she decided to join a rally organized by foreigners in Hong Kong, the expats in Hong Kong. And so our teachers encouraged her, and so she was among, the very few local students who participated in this international gathering to tell the Hong Kong government to protect the climate. And so that is the school. So remember that this is a school that is a senior high school. It has been around for 15 years. And, my intention was to build a school that is unlike all the other schools in Hong Kong. The problem is that I have actually succeeded. So sometimes I ask myself a question, have I succeeded or not? Because in the last 15 years, I thought that I would attract more educators, more innovators to do the same as me. That is, to start different schools, there are alternative schools, experimental schools, so that, education can have progress and can have change. And, we can see better opportunities for different people. But 15 years have passed, and there's only one such school in Hong Kong. So I'm not sure whether it's a success or not. Of course, I have created an ecosystem, and, I think the presence of the school does inform Hong Kong parents that there is a possibility of education change. From September this year, we will be offering the lower form. So in Guozhong, we will be offering from 12 years old. And we have a lot of parents who come to us and say, we've been waiting, for this school to offer the lower forms for a long time. And so we believe that there are people who have awakened to understand that education can take many forms. And so I'm very happy that, they are quite welcome at our school. So can you see my screen that I have moved to another slide? So the next, I will tell you about Make a Difference. So the Make a Difference Institute is a non-profit institute. So it is not a school, it is not a campus. At the beginning, we were a little bit like TED Talks, and we organize a huge event each year where a lot of Taiwan young people come to Hong Kong. It's a 3-day event. It is attended by 1,500 people. And in those 3 days, we invite speakers from all over the world who are innovators, who are thought leaders in their different fields, and they will talk to us about their social change projects, their education change projects, and you know, if they're entrepreneurs, you know, how entrepreneurial they have been. And I think, you know, for those 8 years from the 2010 to about 2018, we have gathered, I would say, you know, a very big group of young people in Asia who are change makers, who believe that young people can also lead social change and can make the world better. But in recent years, we see that a lot of other institutions and organizations are organizing similar events. And as you know, organizing big events in particular, you know, having a venue, having a physical setting, and in speakers from all over the world, it is actually very costly and very, very difficult to run. And so we decided to do small things that target at smaller change, but also in the ecosystem change. We have actually gone, you know, deeper into the role of culture to awaken the sensibilities and the sensitivities of young people so that they can also understand that they have the power, they are empowered to do small actions to respond to these changes. So these small actions are actually very, very, very small. So let me start with telling you, you know, some very small of these initiatives. We have partnered with the Hong Kong Jockey Club, which is a very big charities foundation in Hong Kong, to launch a mat school. And a mat school doesn't really have a campus. The key messages of a mat school is that we would really like to introduce innovative methods to change people's mindsets. For the first time, we are targeting younger students, so primary school, kids, children. And we would pick up themes that respond to their interests and their needs. So in this studio in situ, we have decided to use play. So first of all, we tell the students to understand the site and user needs and to experiment with materials and the making of prototypes and to learn about how to make great play spaces without very expensive toys. And the result is that you see that I look very silly there. This is like a game where you have to pop in a ball to the right hole and that you score different points. And I tell you that, you know, these are kids who are like 9 or 10 years old, and they have built all sorts of games, all sort of play equipment for their friends, for their peers, in a marvelous way. And they are very creative, and they use a lot of recycled material, and it was so joyous for them, you know, for me to be there, and so that they can also explain to me their creativity. In another studio in school, we targeted high schools. We curated a program called Say Trees. Environmental stewardship is actually not very existent. It doesn't really exist in Hong Kong because young people are really focusing on exams too much. Here in this project, we facilitate the students to acquire research skills about trees in their school neighborhood. And so we got an arborist involved, you know, a tree expert. We got an artist and a writer, and a history teacher and a food journalist. And they learn and they create artworks inspired by trees in the school's vicinity. They have also done an online tree map. So for example, in Sha Tin, where the school is, in this community, they have a lot of Bai Qian Cang, you know, these very, very beautiful trees. And so they've done a mapping. And so the young students, they feel very proud and very empowered that you know, they have shown to people, you know, the beauty of their neighborhood. So think about the role of culture, as Adler has asked you to do. Think about the role of culture and these activities in bringing about social change, and we can discuss later. In another studio in school, we have done a community cookbook. We asked the students to interview their parents and grandparents and to come up with cookbooks that represent some history of their families. And then we have made a cookbook for them, and they were really happy and surprised after that. Now, apart from working with schools, we also work with individual teams. We have a platform called Mad Incubators, which target mostly secondary school, so high school. It's a capacity building program. So here it is a little bit like a startup process. First of all, they get to come in and do a number of workshops on design thinking, on social innovation. And then we take them to the neighborhood so that they observe, they see with their eyes, they hear with their ears, they feel, they observe to see, what are the pain points of that community, what are the issues of that community that they, as young people belonging to that community, can help to solve. We would give them a seed funding of around 8,000 Hong Kong dollars, which means like about 30,000 Taiwan yuan. And it is a little bit of money for the school, but they don't join because of the money. But it's a 6-month process whereby they understand that they can be change makers, and then they can actually help the community to build better institutions or facilities or programs. And we have different mentors in that program and different facilitators. So you can, from the glimpse of the titles here, you can actually think about, these young people in Hong Kong, your counterparts, have been thinking about. So can recycle bucket. So obviously they have been, zooming in to think about how to recycle cans, especially soft drink cans. Plastic escapers, they have responded to the issue of, during a lockdown, I think you have this too. You just call the, the food service, the food delivery, and they all come in plastic boxes. And so these students think about, how to respond to this issue. And it was really amazing that we have end of term exhibition showing the results of not only the Mad Incubator project teams, but all the studio in situ and studio in schools, like the sage trees and the play installations and the community cookbook that we have all gone to. So we, rented a venue in a community art center, and we did a really good showcase. Obviously, this is welcomed by the young people because they get their friends and families to come. And then, and so that is a part of the Med School that I do like very much. Now, the next part of the Med School is about trips, it's about learning through going somewhere. Originally, we wanted to come to Taiwan or maybe somewhere in Asia like Korea for this Med trip. But because of the pandemic of COVID, we designed this to be cities for play. We decided to ask the participants to remain in Hong Kong, and we give them a map so that they can go to visit very exciting play space in Hong Kong. And so we have lined up a lot of speakers and moderators and artists, and we want them to rethink and reimagine spaces for play. In Hong Kong recently, I think it also happened in Taipei and Taiwan a lot, is that we have a lot of play space innovations and play as a medium of placemaking. The government also supports that, and so you will see alleyways and dirty back-end roads being modified and renovated by young people, by young architects and designers, so that they respond to the community's needs. And you will see that we have taken the participants to these spaces, and so that they not only understand, but then they will have to rethink, what can I do, or can I do to make my neighborhoods spaces better and more creative. And when the opportunity comes, they would actually step up and do their bit. And in every single MAC project that we do, it is a cross-sector collaboration. And here you can see that we have social workers and teachers and clerks and etc. A lot of people put their efforts together to make sure that our programs are well run. Another MAC project, which I like very much, and I try to steer this personally, we call it Social Lab. So Social Lab is about social innovation, and it is a lab process whereby we join up young people in the community, a government department responsible for a certain policy area, and also professionals and civil society figures interested in this session. So we have labs called a Healthy Street. What we do is, for example, I think you have that in Taiwan too. You know that for social innovation, you need experiments, but then, no government department will give you any room to do experiments. But here, because of the social lab, we knock on many, many doors. We get the government departments interested and say, help us. We want to do an experiment. Can you allow us to do that? And, eventually they do. And so we just try to do. So for example, in this photo, do you see a road sign with a turtle? You see it, right? On the right-hand side of this photo. Now, this is a road sign designed by students who are in the 4th grade. Now, why is that? Our theme was Healthy Street, and we want to focus on school zones. We want to think about how to make streets and open space more safe and more healthy for young kids who go and from schools every day. And in our interviews with children and also their teachers, they say, well, there are so many cars. They don't care that this is a school district. They just zoom past. And then, sometimes, it poses a lot of danger when we cross roads. And so we tell the students, so what can you do? And then the students say, okay, can we redesign the road signs? And so this turtle sign is something that they have designed. And I hope you like it, because surprisingly, this Hong Kong government, of course, the government has been changing quite a lot these days, but I think they are still contemplating to use this road sign for real, and not just as an experiment. So these are the things that we do for Hong Kong to be more civil society led. A recent ongoing lab is a local tourism lab. We collaborate with local tour operators like Walk in Hong Kong. We are here to rethink, what does tourism mean? After COVID-19, people will have second thoughts about flying to different places. So does tourism also mean local tourism, so that we discover our city, we discover our rural area, and we try to make sense of it, and we try to understand how to make the villagers happy while we visit the places, and not to ruin their homes. So we think about a lot of these issues and try to think about how we can collectively use our intelligence to create policies and strategies of local tourism that, on the one hand, pay respect to the villagers who live there, and on the other hand, can respond to the demands of a tourist, like having a good bowl of noodles, or having good sights to see. So we have it is still ongoing, and they are doing testings and in different communities in Hong Kong at the moment. So you can see that it is also a cross-sector team. We do different cycles, and we are at the end of the cycle. So you can see that we collect stories from the local communities, and we think about what is the ideal tourism innovation. And we do it by real life testing. Oops, okay. So I think I'm probably running out of time. But I think I would like to show you another project that Matt does. Matt does a lot of projects on art, and this is called the Jockey Club People's Art Connective. In Hong Kong, we do have a multicultural society, although they are small in number. We do believe that they are very significant. So this art project is about using public space as a site of the neighborhood, school as a site of learning, and we want to benefit those who have been marginalized, and we hope to foster cultural inclusion through creative storytelling, art making, and multisensory imaginations. We are approaching the end of our learning, so we go to a school and we ensure that school children understand what is halal food, what is vegan food, and what is protein food, and they will have to understand how to make these foods by doing, an artwork on a market store only selling halal food. We have a Zoom with different teachers and with different people. So the next we try to empower single mothers to expand their social network by pottery making. You can see that different nationalities and different mothers have created beautiful, beautiful ceramics, and they work with their children, and they find this whole process really soothing, really meditative, through ceramics making, and really contemplative. I think I'll stop here because I want to go to, because Matt has so many projects that I can go on and on, but a few last words on the Good Lab. The Good Lab used to be a co-working space, and it is no longer a co-working space. It is a civil society platform and a social innovation platform. We call ourselves a civil society intermediary for tri-sector collaborations. Tri-sector means the government as a sector, the business as a sector, and civil society as a sector. For me, in order not to not to nurture so-called bad people, I think it is important for any sort of leader to have an empathetic mindset. Empathy is the starting point of a lot of issues and problems in Hong Kong and elsewhere. So, Good Lab tries to use a little bit of the design thinking method. And for example, here, you will see photos of these residents going into a nullah, going into this dam, built by our drainage services department. This is a utilities infrastructure. So why are people walking down there? We are actually collaborating with the drainage services department because they have this big works project to upgrade the nullah, upgrade the dam into something bigger and more effective to respond to climate change. But they know that the residents don't like the smell of the nullah, and they also want to hear the residents' views. So as an intermediary, as a bridge, Good Lab works with, first of all, the engineers from the government side and also the residents, and trying to hear what they are saying and try to connect and try to build and bridge the gap. We do this via very innovative community engagements and also different listening tours, and also working with children to do design workshops. We try to create possibilities and stimulate imagination beyond the top-down style of consultation. At the end of the day, we do believe that we want our governments to be better, so that we can improve public services. So this is not unlike MAD, because MAD is very creative. We want to use art and culture to facilitate mindset change, so that people are more inclusive, they are more humanistic. But at the Good Lab, we consider ourselves a bridge, whereby we use our creativity and we use our tri-sector mindset to make sure that people can communicate with each other. Government, they don't really understand the community's wishes. And so we say, okay, we are your bridge and we want to tell you what the people are thinking. 2 more slides for me. All right. So what we want to do at the Good Lab is how to get more public officials and those involved in public services to understand what we do, and so that we can facilitate and further more communication and better dialogues between the government and the people. So we offer a lot of design thinking training and seminars in the hope that somehow, someday, some people will change their ways of thinking. We work with different organizations to build public service providers' capacity to innovate. So just this afternoon, I was at the Civil Service Training Institute because they wanted me to start a new series of training so that the civil servants in Hong Kong understand what the world looks like and what policies look like in the post-pandemic world. So these are some of the things that I do. So the ecosystem that I want to build through my work at the Good Lab is for the ecosystem, for a tri-sector ecosystem to be bigger and stronger. Again, the tri-sector meaning, with the big government, with the big business sector, the civil society in Hong Kong is tiny, tiny. But we believe that with the change-making mindset, and the change-making mindset does not only apply to young people, but they apply to civil servants, although it is actually more difficult to get civil servants to change. We can actually facilitate them to connect, and also so that we can face unprecedented challenges. So I am at the end of my presentation. I know that I am a bit over time because first of all, Atlas said you have 30 minutes and then you have 40 minutes, and then I started to go talk and talk. But my last word is to all of you. So I have told you a lot of the things that I've done, and it's not even half of it. So there are a lot that I want to tell you, but I think enough of that so you can have a glimpse of what I do. I manage a school. I still run a school, and this school is quite unique. And I still supervise the work of the Make a Difference Institute, although we have a team of 20 young people who are magnificent, and they really do different projects very well, and they have been able to change mindsets and create more harmony and more inclusivity in communities. I have also a strong team at the Good Lab with around 15, 16 young people, and they too, they work very hard in trying to get the government to understand the community's wishes. And for myself, I juggle between these organizations. I dash here, I dash there, and sometimes I give a talk here, and sometimes I go and be a facilitator there. And that's my life, that's my journey. I think I will continue to do this. Why? Because I think, a sustainable and an open democratic ecosystem is important for our future well-being. And a sustainable system means that we must have enough people who are fully awakened to the needs of the society, and they have the skill to communicate and to narrow differences of different people instead of widening differences and playing divisive politics and so on and so forth, so that people hate each other instead of people understand and be tolerant with each other and try to work on their differences, so that at the end of the day we create a very nice and better society for ourselves. Okay, I'll stop here. Over to you, back to you, Adla.
Thank you, Adam. Actually, before we move on, because you just share so many things to us, and I think for many teachers and our participants here, they might not be able to grasp what are the connections between each of the initiatives that you run. Would you mind to give us like 1 or 2 minutes to tell us? Because in your mind, you must have a map to see that, oh, so innovator plays this role and Good Lab plays this role. Could you kind of share the mastermind behind all like these main initiatives that you run? Like, what are the roles they play, and how do they affect the bigger, broader ecosystem in their respective places? And how did you concept?
Time. I haven't got time to talk about innovators, but never mind.
Yeah. So like, what are the roles they play in the ecosystem? How do they affect each other? And how did you come up with such awareness? And I see Ozzy is already here as well. He also has a lot of things. I believe like by sharing your mastermind, you will also give him a lot of inspirations as well.
But you are building an ecosystem in Taiwan as well. Okay. Okay, how do I start? All right. If I can tell the participants here, and especially the teachers, I think in Hong Kong, I would start by describing to you what our ecosystem looks like. We have a huge government that you can imagine is a big, big ball. We have a huge business sector with lots of like finances and trading. Is a huge ball that is full of capital. The government controls the power. So you have the powerful ball and the money ball, and those two forces dominate Hong Kong. And historically, because we are a colony, nobody has ever taught us that as citizens, you also have a right to voice, your views, and also to share your knowledge, and so that you can participate in decision making. Now, I think I would like to build an ecosystem that, although we have a very big board that is very powerful, the government, and very rich business ecosystem, and a tiny, tiny, tiny civil society, I would like to grow civil society. Not in magnitude. I don't think civil society can be as big ever as government and business, but it can be bigger. It can be bigger. It can be bigger. And it should try to intersect with the powerful ball and also the business ball, so that the views and the stories and the wishes and the perspectives and the innovations and the rich intelligence of our society can influence policy, can influence decisions. Although we are small, so we are like, somebody's Achilles heels, right? And we can make or break things. And in Hong Kong, there has never been, any discussion about civil society until around 2003. So, 公民社会, civil society has not been understood, although we have NGOs. So we have the NGOs, which are very big, but they are also very conservative. They run churches, religious organizations, they run schools, they run welfare centers, but they are not change makers. So, slowly and slowly, I was awakened to the fact that if you want to see social change, we must nurture, many, many change makers who will never take no as an answer, and who will say, well, I want to take the matter into my own hands, and I want to suggest my own views and my own ideas of how we should do this. So I chose, I would say, two very big policy areas. One is education. I demonstrated to people that we can actually have the capacity to build something new through, running a real school, and that is actually very difficult. So education is one thing that I've done. You know, Adler mentioned another organization that I run now. It is called Innovators. And that builds the capacity of teachers to be change makers. The next big group of people that I work with are the young people. I do believe that, you know, Hong Kong doesn't have a youth policy, but I believe that I think youth as change makers and youth empowerment are very important issues in building a very empowered ecosystem for social change. So, you know, Make a Difference Institute is a platform to enable youth as change makers. The Good Lab is also a platform to enable youth as tri-sector practitioners, tri-sector collaborators. And I would say that these institutions are quite unique in the sense that there won't be a lot of those. There's only one School of Creativity and one Make a Difference Institute and one Good Lab. But they are very important in catalyzing change and in facilitating change by means of small experiments and, you know, all the way from small to big. Okay, so does that answer your question or not?
Yes,
I
thank you. Thanks, Ada. I think that really gave a very good overall summary of what you mentioned, because your experience was just so colorful and diverse. It's really hard to kind of summarize and help everyone to have a better overview of all these things. But I believe your conclusion by just now, Wei Zhong, could you mute yourself? Wei Zhong? Oh, thank you. Yeah, so as one of the purpose of this event, we also want to empower like teachers like Wei Zhong and also like other educators and or other change makers in different sectors to cross-pollinate. So we might grow ecosystems in Taiwan as well in our own way. So our next speaker coming up, they're actually speakers, not next speaker in singular. So coming up is a group of very youthful teenagers from Chungli Junior High School 7th grade class B. So in each of our sessions, as many of you already participated in other sessions, we not only have experts' perspective from the West and East, we also encourage citizen perspective. So Chungli Junior High School is one of those groups presenting citizens' perspective. The students are Yixuan Xie, Chen Yuwei, Ji Yunchen, Zhi Yuli, Yunchen Wang, Jia Haofu, and Guangjin Chen. And teacher is Yaqi Li. In their self-introduction, they said we are energetic explorers. We pay attention to the public agenda. In independent study class, we decided to join Design for Change and explore the cultural conflicts of the new immigrants in Taiwan. We collected some data, interviewed new local immigrants and migrant workers, and we understood more about how they feel about Taiwan. We promoted the culture of Southeast Asia in campus and let people know more about new immigrants around us. So through their presentation, I would like to invite you all to think about how are immigrants' issues relevant to them or to teenagers in general. And also I'd like to invite you to think about what were the keys that led to their social action and how might that happen to other teenagers as well, regardless whether you are in Taiwan, Sri Lanka, or Canada, or in other places in the world. All right, so without further ado, let us welcome Chungli Junior High School 7B students. You can now start screen sharing.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. We are from Chungli Junior High School. We are doing a DFC challenge, Design for Change challenge. We hope that we can try our best to design something and make the world around us a little bit different. Living in a multicultural society, we find that the number of new immigrants and their children are increasing in Taiwan. They face the cultural conflicts between their hometown and Taiwan. Today, we are going to explore the cultural conflicts and the transformation of new immigrants in Taiwan with you, and hope we can help the new immigrants to fit in Taiwan.
Hi, I'm Jane. I hope we could help the new immigrants get used to their school life through our DFC challenge.
Hello, everyone. I am Monica. I want to know more about new immigrants.
Hi, I'm Max. My mom is from Hawaii.
Hello, I'm Joanne. I like multiculturalism. It is just like love to me. We also interview new immigrants and their children.
Hi, I'm Maxine. I'm curious about the public agenda about the new immigrants in Taiwan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amber. I think Legend is right. It will be good if we can let people know more about the new immigrants through these activities.
What do you suppose everyone in the school will think about new immigrants?
I think most people don't like new immigrants.
I think everyone on campus plays fair with the new immigrants. I think most people at school do not understand new immigrants, so they don't get close to them.
I think most people get along with new immigrants well. Only a few people discriminate against the new immigrant classmates.
When some people are not friendly to new immigrants, I will tell them not to do that. Because we're in the same class, we should be friendly to them. Everyone is born equal.
To be honest, I get along with them well. At school, I don't exclude them, and I would like to be friends with them.
Joanne, have you ever read the book Inside Out and Back Again?
Yes, I have. The book Inside Out and Back Again is about a girl who escaped Vietnam. After the conflicts and the transformation, she started her new life in the USA.
We can use the land conflict and the land transformation to analyze the cultural conflicts that Ha had in the USA and how Ha transformed when she got used to the life in the USA.
Yes, Ha had trouble communicating, learning, eating, and building interpersonal relationships. Ha did not know how to have fun at school. She hid in the restroom.
那牛奶锅应该是牛奶锅。
Besides, Ha was bullied at school. Neighbors are also indifferent to them.
Yeah, because Ha couldn't communicate with classmates, she was unable to counterattack when she was laughed at. Learning English was much harder for her. When Ha and her family visited their neighbors, they were still not friendly and excluded Ha and her family. In order to fit in there, Ha and her family joined some Christian ceremonies.
Then how did Ha transform and fit in at school?
After being comforted by her mother in Washington, Ha became stronger. When her classmates tried to attack her, she counterattacked with the kung fu her father taught her.
You are right. Through this book, we can fully understand how the new immigrants feel and what cultural conflicts they may have in the new environment.
Ha was bullied at school. Those things may happen to the new immigrants in Taiwan. I hope we can help these new immigrants get used to their school life more easily.
Although Taiwan is already a relatively friendly country in the world, some people may have prejudice against the new immigrants. I hope that through this DFC challenge, we can bridge the gap between ordinary students and new immigrant students to promote mutual understanding and cultural exchange at school. Next, let us look at 3 theses about the new immigrants collected by us.
The first thesis is about the college students. The graduate students try to know the acculturation, the cultural identity, dilemma, and advantage of new immigrants' children. The second thesis is about the connotation of children's rights. The graduate students construct strategies on the new immigrants' children's education. The third thesis is the observation about the interpersonal relationship and the interactions between the new immigrants' children and other children.
At the end, we analyze the thesis and conclude 2 points. First, most new immigrants still need our help. Second, we need to emphasize some problems with new immigrants, such as their right to learn and their cultural identity for their mother country. I distributed the questionnaire about the new immigrants' cultures. Most people do help when the new immigrants are bullied. In their opinion, the new immigrants' advantages are they know more about different languages and cultures. Their disadvantage is that they can't communicate with other people well. Most people are not interested in the activities about new immigrants.
That's such a pity. Many people don't really understand new immigrants' cultures.
When we analyzed the questionnaire, I found that most of the people won't deliberately exclude the new immigrants. I felt very happy to know it. It was quite difficult to analyze the responses of the questionnaires, but after reading the comments that our schoolmates wrote, I think it's worth it.
In order to know more about new immigrants in Taiwan, Monica and I went to Jumping Road Story House for the lecture series on Southeast Asian culture 3 times.
Through those activities, we can know more about the real life of the new immigrants and migrant workers in Taiwan, and we realized how students can promote the hometown culture of the new immigrants at school.
Through playing the board game, The Migrant Workers' Life, we understand a lot about migrant workers. Through the lecture, In New Immigrant Shoes, I realized how they feel about Taiwan.
According to the migrant workers we interviewed, we knew that originally, caregivers need to take care of only one person, but later it became necessary to take care of the whole family, including cooking for all the family and cleaning the house. Among the 700,000 migrant workers in Taiwan, 250,000 are caregivers.
Sometimes migrant workers get hurt because of their work, but they don't get compensation and they may even be kicked out by their employer. Some employers don't emphasize the labor rights of new immigrants and even fire them.
In order to adopt Taiwan's policy of introducing supplementary labor force for migrant workers, the employer can report to the authorities. If the migrant workers leave without the employer's permission, then the migrant worker will be regarded as a missing migrant worker, will lose the original work permit, and will be deported.
True, I watched the news before. A Vietnamese missing migrant worker, Rango Fei, was misunderstood that he would drive a police car to run away on August 31st of 2019. He was shot 9 times and killed by the police, but he could not actually drive at all.
Before, new immigrants who came to Taiwan will be charged agent's fee of 150,000 NT dollars. If they need help, they will be charged 3,000 NT dollars every time. Now, migrant workers pay less for it. For example, the agent's fee can't be more than 1,800 NT dollars per month in the first year. It can't be more than 1,700 NT dollars per month in the second year, and it can't be more than 1,500 NT dollars per month in the third year.
We also interviewed Enzo, the volunteer from Dreamers Fly on Sky. She wants to do public service, so she promotes Southeast Asian culture in Chungli. She studied some related issues of new immigrants before the activity. Then she listened to different migrant workers and new immigrants and became friends with them.
The volunteers from Dreamers Fly on Sky help new immigrants to get to know more people. At the same time, more people want to know Southeast Asian culture and help new immigrants and migrant workers. When migrant workers come to Taiwan in the future, people in Taiwan will be more friendly. The new immigrants feel very fulfilled when more people like their hometown culture.
The reason why Dreamers Fly on Sky conduct the Southeast Asian Culture Series lectures is because they hope that people can know more about the new immigrant and migrant workers' hometown culture. Instead of searching the data online, more people can really talk to new immigrants and find out they are not different. New immigrants are also part of Taiwan.
The difficulties Dreamers Fly on Sky has now is that only a few people join the activities, but they are satisfied when more people try to interact with the new immigrants and know more about their culture. After participating in the lectures, I understand more about new immigrants. I also found that the online information about new immigrants may not be correct, and I knew new immigrants' real dilemma.
In the future, I also want to become a person like the volunteer from Dreamers Fly on Sky. I want to do my best to help the people in need.
Yes, when this issue wasn't popular yet, people thought the new immigrants and migrant workers were different. Most people were unfriendly to them because of the stereotypes owing to the news and the jobs. If migrant workers want a better working environment, they need to be lucky. They are unable to change the working environment at all.
We interviewed new immigrant schoolmates. They are Dan, Amy, Belle, and Cindy.
Dan usually stays at his grandma's house in Vietnam. His grandma has prejudice against his mom, and they can't communicate with each other well.
Dan wants to recommend coconut water to Taiwanese. He thinks that Vietnamese coconut water is very sweet. Dan's mother works in Taiwan for 5 years because his grandmother encouraged his mother to come to Taiwan. Amy was bullied because her skin is darker. Amy's mother escaped Indonesia to Taiwan because there was a civil war in Indonesia. At first, Amy's mother used sign language, English, and Google Translation to communicate with others.
In the future, Amy wants to start the business of a drink shop in Indonesia because in Indonesia, usually a milk tea costs $180. Amy thinks that people in Taiwan are very humane. Taiwan is beautiful. The food is also delicious. She would also like to learn and introduce her mom's mother language to us. If our school can have clubs about new immigrants, Amy will participate and hope to introduce Indonesian language and food to others. Amy's mother does not like to be called foreign workers. She hopes people can just call her her name.
Belle's mom did not like Taiwan's food at first, but she fit in here gradually. In the future, she wants to be an interpreter or a diplomat. She wants to work in both Vietnam and Taiwan and change jobs every 2 years.
Cindy thinks that dyeing is a growing industry in Vietnam because many people there have the need. In the future, Cindy wants to bring Taiwan's technology to Vietnam.
After the interview, I know that Dan's mother does not get along with Dan's grandma well. I think this problem may happen to many new immigrants. We should emphasize their predicament.
After the interviews, I found out that Amy, Belle, and Cindy's dreams are related to Indonesia and Vietnam. They may apply what they learn in Taiwan to promote cultural exchange between Taiwan and Southeast Asia, or start a business in their mom's mother country.
Yep. Through interviewing these new immigrant schoolmates, we can realize their feelings and opinions more truly. Compared with countless materials and examples on the internet, the experiences they share are more real to us because it happened exactly to the new immigrants and their children around us.
Oh, it suddenly occurs to me that our class promotes snacks from Southeast Asian countries and taught our schoolmates to speak a few words in different languages at the school fair. I think this is such a meaningful activity that allows students to experience diverse culture in a relaxing and happy way. We can apply what we learn from Thesis. We can have a multicultural fair and promote the new immigrants' culture at school with games.
In the first game, Bamboo Dragonfly, we put the Bamboo Dragonfly for 5 seconds. Bamboo dragonfly from Vietnam are different from Taiwan's. The bamboo dragonflies from Vietnam are decorated with Vietnam traditional patterns, so we can find out the beauty of traditional Vietnam. The second game is to learn Southeast languages. Our schoolmates can learn more than 2 kinds of languages, thank you and hello. We hope more people can understand our new immigrants' friends' languages.
The third one is bamboo trap dance. The formula of bamboo trap dance is open, close, open, close, open, open, close, and thread back, thread back, thread, thread, thread back. Then bamboo trap dance is called tinikling. Tinikling is very popular in the Philippines. The last one is about the triangle Maysai. We make a lecture from Maysai. Then we invite the lecturer to come to our school and introduce the traditional clothes and the cultures of Maysai. with the money we earn at the school fair on Christmas.
We also invite Dreamers Fly on Sky and the lecturer from Meisai to our school and have a speech. Then we can bridge the gap between our schoolmates and the related resources outside our school, and encourage our friends to join the activities about the new immigrants. We invited Dreamers Fly on Sky because during the interview, they were enthusiastic, like to promote Southeast Asian culture. And we invited Dreamers Fly on Sky to share how they help more people to know Southeast Asian culture.
While preparing for the school fair, we learned a lot through searching Southeast Asian information and teaching our schoolmates how to say hi and thank you in Southeast Asian languages. For example, in Vietnamese, let's say hi, xin chào. Let's say thank you, cảm ơn bạn.
Holding the multicultural fair, I thought it was very difficult to design the games and the lecture at first, but we really did it. We benefited greatly.
I think the shortcoming of our DFC challenge is that we collected 160 questionnaires of ordinary schoolmates, and we collected only 13 questionnaires of new immigrant schoolmates. The reason may be that we distributed the questionnaires to many 7th graders, and the 7th graders have just entered junior high school and feel very unfamiliar and uncertain in this new environment. Unlike the 8th and 9th graders, they are familiar with the environment and their classmates and can share the experiences genuinely. Therefore, we know we can help them to get used to their school life.
In the future, we can transform the multicultural fair into a summer camp. We can invite some elementary students, other junior high school students, and their family to join the Southeast Asian games and lectures together.
We can interview the new immigrants of the supplementary school and ask them if they have any problems with languages, marriage, life adjustment, or getting a job.
That's right. They can learn Chinese in supplementary school. I know that Taoyuan New Immigrants Culture Hall usually helps new immigrants to get a job. We can also tell them about it.
We can help the new immigrants if we ask village chief to help them and introduce new immigrants education for them.
Be a child of a new immigrant. I think that I can understand the difficulties that when my mom comes to Taiwan may encounter and how she adapt a new environment in Taiwan is a very good experience.
The new immigrants know more cultures. They can not only make the culture of Taiwan more diverse, their future job choices are also more than others. I think we can join the activities about the new immigrants in the future, so we can more interactive with the new immigrants.
Without multiple collisions, how can there be brilliant sparks? Through the interview, we became more familiar with the new immigrants. Today, we shared and discussed many activities and hope that in the future, we can create a culturally inclusive environment for more people around us and make Taiwan's culture more diverse. We have some questions about our theme. Hope everyone can think together and explain their own ideas. 1. Will cultural conflicts have a bad influence on people? Could it also have a good impact? 2. Have you ever met the new immigrants with life adjustment problems? How do they solve the problems?
Excuse me, is that the end of the slide?
Yes.
All right. Could you still could you still present that slide and leave it at the very last page?
Yeah, I think, oh, so I was muted, right? I was trying to say something. All right. Yeah, thank you all for such a touching, moving experience. Oh, Godfather of homeschooling gave you a big five. I think the questions that you just raised in the last slide was fabulous, and I actually would love to know what do you think about those questions. Could you share the questions again? Yeah. So, what do you think? Could any of you share some thoughts about these questions?
For questions number 1, I think just like our conclusions, without multiple collisions, how can there be brilliant sparks? So I think cultural conflicts, they may have bad influence on people, but without the cultural conflicts, people can transform and fit in the new environment they are.
I see. So you see the positive potential in conflicts. How about the second question you just asked?
No, I haven't, because I asked my classmates, and they often they just born at Taiwan, so they don't have problems about the life adjustment.
I see. I'm also very curious, like how among the in the students that you interviewed, you said you interviewed some immigrant students, right? How do they identify themselves? Do they consider themselves as Taiwanese, or do they consider themselves as students or generate, like how do they consider which country they belong to? I'm trying to use plain English. 他们说他们觉得自己是台湾人吗？还是他们觉得自己是哪一国人？
其实他们也没有特别说，但是他们都很大方的分享他们的经验，然后还有他们在他们那个就是他们家人的原乡国家的一些经验，他们不会觉得说他们自己的身份就是会跟其他人不一样，他们都其实很乐于分享。我们访问的人都是这样子，像7年级的还有9年级都是这样子。
That sounds very great. So it seems like, so briefly translate the key points she just mentioned. So she thought that her interviewees were pretty open to interview and proudly shared their experiences, although they didn't mention which nationality they belong to, but they are pretty proud of their cultures. Tim, do you have a question to them? I thought that was a high five.
No, actually, I do have a question. Yeah, so well, first of all, I want to congratulate the Chungli Guozhong students for doing such a wonderful job. And I also want to thank the teacher to encourage and prepare them for entering the open mic. And, you know, both the students and the teacher have demonstrated a tremendous potential of our country, and I think that's very. I just want to say congratulations and job well done, and thank you first. But I do have a question, and it's a difficult question, so I'm going to ask, and I want the students to pay attention and think about the question before you answer it.
Yeah, also, Tim, I would suggest you that you ask in English, then also ask in Chinese. They might not understand.
I think that's a very good suggestion. I think Adler has demonstrated a very considering bilingual skills, and thank you for reminding me that. 我本来就要讲了，结果你还要画蛇添足。So my question to you is, the Miaoli Xian County Magistrate last month, actually this month, decided to restrict the movement of migration workers in the electronic factory that was tested positive for COVID-19. Do you agree or disagree that the Miaoli Xian County Magistrate can single out the migration workers for not to be able to move around because they may be suspicious of COVID-19 cases? 苗栗县县长在月初的时候，因为防疫，宣布说在苗栗县的所有的外籍移工，基本上都不准出门，然后限制在他们的宿舍里面，剥夺他们的行动自由。你同意还是不同意苗栗县县长这样的一个做法？啊，为什么？谢谢。
我觉得不同意。
为什么？
因为苗栗县长不是限制他们，就是那些移工们不能外出吗？可是这样就已经限制他人身自由，就是每个人都有自己的权利可以决定自己要去哪，但是你这样限制人家，好像会触犯到法律上的问题。
OK。然后，而且它只有针对移工而已，它没有限制其他工厂里面的员工吗？
就是有点，就是像那个，就是有点对新住民有点，就是新住民跟移工那些有点排斥的感觉，
就是歧视他们，因为他们就是不会说将心比心，你限制那些移工，为什么你没有限制台湾人民？不然就是说你没有限制台湾人民，为什么你要限制移工？而且我上次有看到新闻，也有新闻就是说。那些移工他们好像是他们就是被隔离，而且他们吃的便当菜色都是很不好，然后是有人为了这个发生之后呢，然后才有改善。但是就是坏处就是说，就是之前他们可能都是一直就是吃的这些便当，然后没有人替他们发声，然后可能默默忍受很久。但就是幸好后来就是好的地方就是后来已经有人发声，然后。听说已经有改善了，因为他们有拍了照片，然后上传说他们现在菜色已经改善。
好。那其他的同学呢？你们觉得怎么样？你们的看法是什么？
我也觉得不同意，因为我觉得这是一个对新住民、对移工的歧视。然后从这个新闻上来看，也可以看得出来，台湾还是有人会歧视新住民跟移工的。
Tim, I will actually invite you, if you wouldn't mind, to do a little translation, because we also have friends from Sri Lanka, also from Canada, and maybe some other countries.
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, I was going to let you show up your language skill, but since you invited me, that恭敬不如从命, so I will obliged as our right honorable speaker has demanded me to translate the very soulful and exciting answers from our students. Sorry, I cannot do it one by one because I wasn't queued early enough. So I'm just going to sum up what they just said. So my question to them was that, let me just repeat the question in case people forget. My question to them were, recently the Miaoli County Magistrate has demanded to place all the migration workers to limit their movement in the dormitory, i.e. to take away their freedom of movement from the dormitory because the factory they work for had outbreak of COVID-19. And so my question to the student were, do they agree with such a policy or not, and why? So the students' answer were all disagree with the county magistrate's decision because it's it's basically they take away the freedom of movement of the migration worker, and the same rule did not apply to the Taiwanese nationals. So it's clearly a discrimination against only the migration workers, and also there were a news report that while they were under quarantine because they've been denied the access, they've been denied the right to move, even though they all been tested negative, and for no reason to keep them in the quarantine in their own dormitories. They've been given a very unpalatable food, and which was reported by the newspaper, and the students were outrageous by such treatment to the guest workers in Miaoli, and basically that's their reaction. Of course, they elaborate a lot more, but due to my lack of brain capacity, I cannot remember the details. But in the gist, that's what they said. 可以吗？主席这样还可以吗？满意吗？
It's such a privilege to have godfather of homeschooling in Taiwan to do that translation for us, because we were trying to reach our next speaker, but actually Geoff Mulgan, he is a very important innovator and scholar in the field of social innovation, and right now he's actually in Italy participating in another important meeting. He said he will join us at 8:30, but I think he might have other things that kept him. Yeah. So we're trying to reach.
I'm happy to talk to the students while you try to reach Geoff.
Actually, I thought that the students also have. Actually, I heard that you have prepared some questions to Ada. Do you?
Oh yes, I have. Wait a minute.
Oh, hi, Ada. Sorry, I didn't realize that Ada is still online.
No, I'm still online. I'm here. I have been asked to stay.
Well, good to see you, Ada. It's been a while since I went to visit you. Yeah.
Okay. The first question I want to ask Ada is, I searched for information and found that there are also new immigrants in Hong Kong. They settled in Hong Kong from mainland China, also known as New Hong Kong people. Some new immigrants can gradually fit in Hong Kong, but some new immigrants can't fit in Hong Kong easily due to different cultural backgrounds, social perspectives, and living habits, and even conflicts with local Hong Kong people. The local faction in Hong Kong believes that the new Hong Kong people come to Hong Kong for welfare and have no contribution to the society, and criticize them as locusts. Some opinion polls show that many new immigrants feel discriminated against and feel that they are not accepted. What do you think of these new immigrants from Hong Kong? What do you think of these immigrants in Hong Kong and from China?
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Why don't I try to answer these questions? So first of all, I think Hong Kong has always been a city, a community with lots of immigrants. Way back 50, 60 years ago, we have immigrants from mainland China. We have different, from different provinces. The Shanghainese live in North Point, and the Fujianese live elsewhere. And so Hong Kong is made of, people from everywhere. And in the late 50s, there has also been a lot of refugees coming from different corners of Asia, particularly from Vietnam, when there was the Vietnam War. And a lot of Vietnam refugees, we call them the boat people, and they have arrived in Hong Kong. Some got asylum and some remained to stay. up to now, we have got refugees from many, many countries, including, I don't know whether you have been in Hong Kong. We have the Chongqing Dasha and Chongqing Mansion, and that is a haven for refugees and for new immigrants, including immigrants from African countries and from countries and whom like you don't even know, like in in Western Africa and so on and so forth. They come to Hong Kong to trade, and some would like to stay in Hong Kong and to continue their life here. So obviously, as you have mentioned in your very excellent PowerPoint presentation, there is discrimination. There is discrimination, between immigrants, no matter what nationality. But of course, there's also a lot of misunderstanding between those who are from the mainland and those who have been raised locally, and sometimes for political reasons. Nevertheless, just looking at this from the perspective of a change maker, and also as a very humanistic and compassionate person, I believe that we must have empathy, and we must embrace diversity in our community. So if you have noticed in my presentation, of the Make a Difference Institute, we are, we do a lot of art programs where we connect the ethnic minorities in Hong Kong to different creative activities, so that they can find themselves, find their voice, in these artistic projects. And I believe that, in the future, we should continue to welcome different immigrants to Hong Kong, so that we remain an international city. So I'm not sure whether I have answered your question. You have any thoughts on what I've just said?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Ada.
And the second question is, new immigrants might have the maladaptation. So in Hong Kong, how does the government help new immigrants fit in Hong Kong?
Well, the first thing is that I don't think we should rely on the government to do things to enable immigrants to fit in Hong Kong. I'm quite sure that in Taiwan, you don't really rely on the government as well, right? I see that Sifan has raised his hand, but let me say a few more words to see whether Adler, you want to acknowledge Sifan so that he can speak. It's, for me, I think activists and social change makers, we all have a role to play in enabling immigrants to become a core member of our society, no matter where we are. So I can see that schools are doing quite a lot because there's bound to be a new immigrant in schools. But then I think we must continue to find new ways and creative ways and innovative ways so that we have more of these immigrants who don't think that they are an outsider, but then they are also part of our community. The government can help with policies and with funding, but I think deep down it is people against people. It's whether people with people or people against people. It is certainly not easy, to enable people to understand people. It is actually very easy for us to pitch people against people. Especially, when society has become very divisive in Hong Kong. So I don't have a solution, but I think my starting point of a solution would be to start from the ground, to start from bottom up, and that we all have a role to play in making Hong Kong very diverse. Okay.
Awesome, Stefan. Since you raised your hand, would you like to raise your point?
Yeah, so just wanted to ask a question. So in other countries, I think when we use the terminology migrant workers, there is a tendency to use that term for the less skilled workforce, like the people who come and work in construction sites, in factories, housemates, things like that. And people who are skilled migrants, who are working in managerial positions, engineers, scientists, things like that, they are sometimes called expatriates. There's even a different terminology used. And while, let's say in the US, you might face racism because of the color of your skin, regardless of where you are in that, there is a tendency that, when you are in that expat category, you live in a posh apartment, you have a car, all of those things, you are treated very differently in society compared to the migrant workers. And I just wanted to see, is that same dynamic there in Taiwan as well, and also what the students think of, why are we treating people differently based on income? I mean, those expatriate workers are also migrant workers. They also have a different culture. They also have challenges adapting to Taiwanese culture, but they are a part in society.
Does anyone understand, or should I do? 你们需要我翻译吗？好，那我简单翻译一下刚才Stefan说什么。他就说，他觉得很有趣的一件事情是他观察到这个，我们通常在讲移工的时候，都是在讲这劳动者，他可能基层劳动者，他可能是这个去做建筑啊，或者是去捕鱼啊，或者是反正就是做一些基层劳动。但是假设今天一个白人来到台湾的话，你就不会叫他外籍移工，你就不会叫他移工啊，明明都是海外来这边工作的，为什么这个那些皮肤比较黑的就叫做移工啊，但是那些白人来的就说是什么外国人，或者是什么外国专家，或者是什么这个外派人员这样子。那他想问说，你们有没有观察到这个现象？然后你们对这件事情有什么看法？Stefan, I translated your question.
可能比较，如果我可以 ，if I may interject， 然后就是同学们可以这样思考，就是说，我们在面对同样是来台湾做工的人，同样是来台湾做事的人，同样是来加入我们的劳动产业的，有一些人，我们称为他们就外劳，因为他们做的都是蓝领的，就是粗重的，就是可能是工地啊、工厂啊等等之类的。然后另外有一些人，我们会称为他们就是外国专业技术人才，例如说你的外语老师，如果你是外师的话，那你对于这样的区别，你有什么样的想法？然后或你有观察到这样的差异吗？
你们想到什么就可以发言，没关系。
You go up later. 其实我有观察到，但是有可能，其实本身可能就存在有歧视，但是就像我台词说的，就是because of the stereotypes owing to the news and the jobs， 有可能是因为他们的工作，就是本身他们从事的工作就不一样。那一开始他们指的就是劳工，就是假如那个从东南亚来的他们那些人成为老师的话，那有可能我们也会叫他们外师。然后假如是就是不是从东南亚来，就是也是就是像外国那种，就是我们称之为外国人那种，假如他是移工的，就是他是从事那个工人那些工作的话，有可能我们会加移工吧，因为感觉取名字是因为他们的工作，我自己这样觉得。
我也有观察到这个现象，但是我觉得可能是因为现在存在一个社会阶级的概念，所以大家才会这样子会差别的去称呼他们。
我觉得对，就是那个社会阶级在新闻媒体，或者是他们都会故意去贬低那些移工，所以会造成这些社会现象。
All right, so Stefan, I'll summarize because Geoff is in, and I'll summarize their responses. So basically, they think the media plays a role in stereotyping such difference that becomes a stigma of the people with darker colors. I personally don't like the idea of people of color because it has a certain presumption that white isn't a color, or it assumes white centralism. All right, so Geoff is
but they also mentioned the people's prejudice against manual laborers.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry because
which I think is a very important point.
Yeah. All right. So finally, after many hardships, we have Sir Geoff Mulgan. So I'd like to introduce him to our talk. All right. Can you see the slide I'm sharing? All right, so as in every session, we represent three perspectives. One is an pioneer perspective in the Eastern cultures, and one is from the Western cultures. And right now we're presenting Sir Geoff Mulgan from the United Kingdom. Sir Geoff Mulgan is Professor of Collective Intelligence, Public Policy, and Social Innovation at University College London. Prior to that, he was the Chief Executive of Nesta, the UK's Innovation Foundation, between 2011 and the end of 2019. Between 1997 and 2004, Geoff had roles in the UK government, including the Director of the Government Strategy Unit in the Performance and Innovation Unit and Head of Policy in the Prime Minister's Office. From 2004 to 2011, he was the first Chief Executive of the Young Foundation. He was the first director of the think tank Demos and has been a reporter on BBC TV and radio. Geoff has founded or co-founded many organizations, including Demos, the Young Foundation, the Social Innovation Exchange or SIX, Uprising, Studio Schools Trust, Action for Happiness, the Alliance for Useful Evidence, States for Change, the Australian Centre for Social Innovation, and more. He also wrote many books, include The Art of Public Strategy, Good and Bad Power, The Locust and the Bee, The Big Mind, How Collective Intelligence Can Change Our World. And his work has been translated into many languages, including Chinese, Arabic, Korean, Russian, and more that you name it. So from Geoff's experience, you can see how similar he is to Ada. They have countless backgrounds and experience, a very incredible pioneer in being a slashy. And I think in his presentation, his work raises some very important questions that I'd like to invite you all to explore with us in the following hour. So oftentimes there is a mainstream narrative that we mistrust the collective. For example, 1,000 years ago, there was this narrative of the tyranny of the majority. And right now there is a emotion towards populism and the mistrust or the aggressive attitude towards it. But on the other hand, Geoff actually believed the power in collective intelligence. So why does he believe in that? And also in his work, he mentioned a lot that consciousness is very important in this collective process, which oftentimes, especially in the last century's paradigm, we don't really trust individuals. Instead, we trust institutions. So it's probably also a great idea to also think about why consciousness is important in such a collective process while we listen to Geoff's sharing. So without further ado, it's been delayed, but I hope the enjoyment and learning will not be influenced. So let's welcome Sir Geoff Mulgan. Thank you.
So thank you, Adela. Tell me, how long would you like me to talk for? Because I'm keen we have plenty of time for you to talk to me. Give me a target and I will stick
All right.
to it.
How about 20 minutes?
Perfect. Okay. And I will show a few pictures, partly to help me. I don't know if you can see me. Can you see me? I am speaking from Italy, from quite a weird gathering of art and science and so on. And it's one of the first face-to-face meetings I've been to for a long time. 3 dimensions. So maybe it feels comfortable being back in 2 dimensions with you. But this morning I was in 3. So I really like the topic of your event. And I don't know if I can give you any answers, but I'll just maybe share with you some frames about how I think about it. And I'm going to try and share a screen. Here I can. Let's go. Here we go. This relationship between inner and outer change is a really good one to think about. I won't go through my background, but maybe just to summarize how I think of my career. I was an activist when I was a teenager. I've spent sort of half my life looking a bit from the top down, working with governments, mainly in the UK, but also Australia and elsewhere. And half sort of looking from the ground up with innovators, community activists, social entrepreneurs, and so on. And your title reminded me of what happened to me when I was 17 years old. And I had been an angry political activist. And by chance, in a forest in Sri Lanka, I met this man, Nyanaponika Thera, who was a Theravadan Buddhist thinker. This may disrupt your Western perspective framing, Adler. I got to know him very well. I spent some time in a monastery he recommended, but we also had an argument which went on actually for 10 years. And essentially it was an argument between me as a teenager saying, we have to change the world, the problems are urgent, so on. And him saying, no, you have to change yourself before you can change the world, because otherwise what you do in the world will reflect all the pathologies deep inside your soul and spirit. And that argument is still not resolved in my head. I actually think we were both wrong in retrospect. And to some extent, each of us has to work out that balance of the inner and the outer, and they will always be in tension. But if you're faced with things like climate change, you can't wait for everyone to have achieved some kind of nirvana before you deal with the questions of the world. So anyway, that's the sort of starting point to throw at you. And what I think I'll do is sort of 5 minutes each on 3 things which I've been grappling with a little bit in the last few years, and see how they resonate with you. The first in some ways is the sort of the simplest, which is happiness, which is one aspect of the inner world. And I've been interested for many years in what one can do personally to be happy, what you can do to help the people around you to be happy, but also what governments and businesses can do. And one of the organizations I helped set up and worked with is called Action for Happiness. Adler mentioned it. We have the Dalai Lama as our patron, and have tried to pull together essentially lots of knowledge about how to be happy, how to thrive. Much of it is kind of obvious. It's about creating time in your life for silence, engaging with nature, looking after the people around you, Anyway, if you're interested, there's lots of useful sort of tips, keys to how to be happy. And we've been running a course for a few years called Exploring What Matters, which was actually launched by the Dalai Lama, and just recently had the most rigorous scientific analysis of it using a randomized controlled trial, which showed extraordinary effects this had both on people's happiness, but also on their social connectedness. And it kind of raised the question, why isn't this just much more normal? Why does it, why does one need to add this in? And we're now working with schools and universities and others on how to apply these methods. And one of my co-founders is about to become in charge of mental well-being for all the universities in the UK, trying to just embed these simple practices, which in a way are about aligning your outer purpose and your inner purpose, looking after yourself, but also trying to do that not in a completely selfish way, but recognizing that your well-being depends on the well-being of the people around you. So anyway, that's one thing. We have well over 1 million sort of followers on social media and formal members, nearly 300,000, and sort of groups all over the world now. So that's just a little bit on happiness. And I mention this partly because this week I've been working for the Finnish government actually on trying to embed happiness and well-being into how they run public policy, which is quite a nice thing to be asked to work. The second one is wisdom, which I've also been working on with the Finns. And here it's a work in progress I'm going to share with you. I think many of us realize we live in an exponential era where all of these graphs are going crazy in the last 200 years, population levels, GDP levels, resource use, resource depletion, all these things are exponential. And I think many of us feel that we don't have exponential wisdom, we don't have the right mindsets to deal with this era. And particularly I find this younger people see this very clearly, that the people in power, more like my age, don't have the wisdom they need. We have crazy leaders. We've lost Trump, thank God, but Bolsonaro, the picture there, is still president of Brazil, who is pretty much in everything he does the opposite of wisdom. And we have these social media, Facebook, Twitter, but also Weibo and so on, which can often spread lies, misinformation. Again, they're the opposite of reflective wisdom. So I think we have a problem in this. And one of the odd things, universities very rarely now teach wisdom. In a previous era, they were thought to be the guardians of this stuff. And many of them are almost embarrassed to talk about it. And I think that's a problem. So I've been looking at the relation of these things, data, knowledge, information, knowledge, wisdom, and also the limitations of perhaps a traditional idea of wisdom, which maybe the guy I met in the Sri Lankan forest had, which used to be about old men, often detached from the world, a very hierarchical view of wisdom, but also not necessarily always all that useful. There's wonderful wisdom literature, but does it help us answer these sort of questions? How do you deal with an oppressive government? How do you deal with your everyday relationships? How do you deal with a COVID pandemic, fix unemployment, care for endangered species? All these things, actually that old wisdom literature isn't very helpful with at all. So I've been trying to think about, what would be a more useful approach and working with others on this. We've sort of boiled it down to 5 things. And I'll just give you a hint of these. And if you're interested, you can read that there's a much longer piece showing what this means in practice. The most simple idea is about loops, that often the best way we can be wise in our own lives, but also in our sort of activism, is by consciously thinking about what you think is going to happen, observing what actually happens, and then adjusting your beliefs. Now, this may seem so obvious to you, but it's incredibly rare, I find, with most people of any age. It's incredibly rare with governments and institutions. So this habit of constant doubt, as it were, of loop learning, seems to me one of the essences of wisdom and largely missing. But it's a habit you can cultivate in everything from what you eat to how you study or what have you. Multiplicity is another key thing that often to be wise, we need multiple perspectives on something. Just the linear front-on perspective, often you just don't see things as they really are. You need diversity. Nearly all our wisdom actually depends on others too, and there's now lots of evidence on this, which I won't go into, on how in the right circumstances, groups can solve problems, think things through better than even the cleverest individual within the group. It depends how it's done. It's not, crowds are not always wise, but my interest in collective intelligence comes from this. Argument is also important. To get to wise outcomes, often you need to challenge arguments, to be willing to, pit things against each other, hopefully with not too much ego. But if everyone's too polite, everyone doesn't say what they're really thinking, then it's quite hard to get to wisdom. And then finally, integration, where you pull all these things together, you see things with an ethical lens, what's right as well as what may be good, and so on. And those are just some thoughts, and it's an emerging body of work which I and others are involved in, which I hope at some point becomes, say, part of what schools, universities and others do. And even, I won't go into this now, the institutions. And we sort of see this as like a dark matter, that if you have a lot of wisdom in a society, it deals with conflicts much better, much more smartly. And if you don't have very much, then even a small shock, a small problem quickly bursts out of hand. And the Scandinavians are very good at this, and they've deliberately, in the 19th century, more recently, cultivated versions of this sort of training in wisdom as a kind of dark matter. And then finally, I just want to do a few minutes on imagination, which is partly what I've been talking about here in Italy. And this probably looks quite different depending on where you are in the world, but maybe not so different. So we have a huge amount of activism around the climate, that's Greta Thunberg and the early school strikes. And my sense is, certainly in Europe, most people under 25, 30 have a very clear picture of just how bad climate change could be, of how disastrous the next few decades could be, with temperatures rising and food shortages and refugee crises and the world burnt out. To the extent there is a more positive picture of the future, it's very technological and cold and about machines flying through the air, not much place for human beings in these kind of pictures of, or sort of data being taken from us by big companies or big brother states, and so on. And as for a more positive picture of what our society could look like 20, 40, 60, 80 years into the future, people really struggle to articulate it. And the pictures of the future tend to be these slightly soulless ones with, again, no humans visible in them. And yet we depend hugely on other people. This is from the 2019 World Happiness Report, which showed that the best predictor of which countries will be happy is whether people have friends and relatives they can count on for support when they're in need. It's this human mutual support is critical for us thriving as people. And yet we don't really have a good picture of a future in which that becomes more normal, more mainstream. And the technologies which could be helping us with this give us lots of superficial friends, but maybe not friends you can really count on when you're in need. And so this fuels a kind of pessimism about the future. This is from a couple of years ago, a survey of many countries asking parents if they thought their children would be better off or worse off than them. And most of these countries, or the dark blue lines, a majority is thinking their kids will be worse off than them. This loss of confidence in the possibility of the future is very, very widespread, from South Korea to Britain, Italy, US, Japan, you name it. So I've been looking at some of the alternatives, how we reawaken our imagination. I'll jump through all these. How you use utopias as a way of imagining, what would be a more ideal society. And there's some fantastic literature of utopias like Ursula Le Guin, Octavia Butler, and a great tradition of trying to leap into the future. There are what I call generative ideas, like the idea of a circular economy with no waste, or the idea of a universal basic income, which is now being trialed in dozens of countries, partly because of COVID. So everyone gets a guaranteed amount of money, and it turns out that's quite good for employment, but also good for reducing people's anxiety. If they're not terrified of not having enough cash it turns out they can live a much better life. We've been looking at model towns, the new kind of cities, old model towns like the garden cities at the top there, which was in the late 19th century, a vision of creating, leaving the big cities behind and creating communities of about 30,000 people with work and home reintegrated and lots of green spaces. Now that's a vision which actually becomes much more viable in the post-pandemic world, where it's much easier to work from home. Indeed, many white-collar jobs, you have to work from home. And so there are these interesting examples like Freiburg in Germany, a very green city, and also interesting failures like Google's attempt to create a model in Toronto. There's a picture of it in the bottom left, and that failed because the people decided they didn't really like this data-driven, technology-driven vision of the future. And there's all these tools which we document in speculative design and fiction and so on, which help us to imagine alternatives. I won't go through all of this. And most recently, I've been looking at the role of the arts in this, how the arts can open up new ways of thinking. Joseph Beuys was a very famous German artist who has this slightly over-the-top claim that only art can, as it were, save a social system from its death. But certainly arts help us to imagine what it's like to be a tree or an ecosystem, or they help to warn us of things like climate change. That's Oliver Eilers' ice blocks on the right. And I've been working on a set of tools which can help us do this job of imagination. Thinking 40 years into the future, how could our schools, our parks, our transport be organized? And these are also tools you can use for making music or writing literature. The first one is inversion, where you swap roles over. So it could be, the pupils become the teachers or the patients become the doctors. And there are many others which are prompts. I'm just going to finish with one or two thoughts. Someone's maybe could help by muting themselves. If you look into the future, and particularly you think about where the world is going, science, technology, and so on, there's one sort of way of doing things where you sort of go with the flow. You just go with the existing trends. In a way, that's what Google's vision of Toronto was. It's just ever more digital tech, ever more data, ever more sensors, and so on. That's one option. There's an opposite option where you just go against that. You resist it all, you reject it all. You try to, get away from or stop any carbon-based industries, reject artificial intelligence, and so on. But I think usually the most productive approach is sort of try to synthesize. They go with the grain and against the grain at the same time. And this is what's happened to the green movement, which 30, 40 years ago was very much sort of anti-industrial, anti-technology, go back to living in small villages. But now I think it's become much more sophisticated in thinking, how can we not only give up meat, but also create good meat alternatives? How do we both stop buying fast fashion, but also create new textile and clothing systems which are less damaging for the environment? And I think the same will happen in relation to digital technology. And I call this dialectical imagination. It's simultaneously with and against the flow, rather than getting trapped in one or the other. And that may also be a little bit of a way of balancing inner and outer too. And I guess in my own life, that's how I've sort of ended up responding to these long discussions I had with the great Nyanaponika Thera. And I should say his book, The Heart of Buddhist Meditation, became the foundation book for a huge industry really on mindfulness training. They all acknowledged they got it from him. Their books now sell in the millions, and there are courses all over the world on how to do mindfulness. It actually came from this guy, and I was incredibly lucky. I just met him by chance on a bench in a forest at the age of 17. But I think he was too inner. And I think one has to be engaged in the outer world as well. And the very final thing I'll say was prompted by listening to a Bob Dylan song just before I came here. Bob Dylan became 80 2 weeks ago, I think. I don't know if any of you listened to Bob Dylan. He's one of the relatively few musicians who became enormously successful in the 1960s and actually carried on making music, touring, performing, saying things, making films, and actually reinventing himself quite successfully. And one of his better recent songs, recorded, I guess, at the age of 78 or something, is basically a play on this quote from Walt Whitman, the 19th century American writer, who said, "I am large, I contain multitudes." And I think this is kind of quite a helpful idea. I don't think any of us has a singular self, which is completely coherent, has a boundary around it. That was the kind of the old idea, perhaps 100, 200 years ago. Instead, I think it's more useful to think of your brain, yourself, as containing quite a lot of different elements, different modules even, which sometimes cooperate, they sometimes compete, they sometimes fall asleep, they're sometimes engaged. And you shouldn't expect a perfect alignment of the inner and the outer. You can have different identities, different roles. And indeed, that's one idea of how to grow through life, is by containing multitudes and feeding some of your multitudes and not being too worried if sometimes they're a little bit in contradiction with each other. So I think I'll shut up there and hope that's given at least something to react against or challenge or whatever.
Thank you so much, Geoff. I think serendipity is really incredible. By your talk, you actually just recapped so many concepts that we had throughout the conference. At the opening, Kate Robinson quoted his father, Ken Robinson, about the inner and outer worlds. And by the multitude concept you just mentioned, that having multitude of selves, it actually resonates with another speaker, Kageki Asakura from Japan, talking about the Japanese traditional notion of self, which contains so many people of your life encounterments. And of course, your new the concept of going beyond the technical utopian vision to envision a different kind of society also recaps. It also resonates with the session just a few hours ago on ecological awareness and how might we create regenerative cultures. So I'm blown away by how serendipitous your talk is. You really helped us to provide a very, very good conclusion. I'd just like to ask you whether would you stay for 30 more minutes here?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm much keener to hear your views and responses. So I'm happy to do Q&A, but I'd much rather hear a conversation.
Yeah. So that's why I'm asking if you will stay for 30 minutes. Although originally we planned for 30 minutes in-depth conversation in groups, but since our schedule has been serendipitously and adaptively changed, right now I think we will have 15 minutes for 3 rounds of World Cafes, which we will send all of the speakers into 3 groups, and you will rotate into different groups to have some conversation with everyone. Charles, would you mind to keep your question in the World Cafe?
Sure, no problem.
Awesome. So since we don't have much time, I think many of you already have experience with our previous sessions. So please just follow the flow and go to each of your groups to enjoy your conversation with each speakers. So I'll send you right now.
Should I be joining a breakout room or am I being deployed?
Well, actually, we're going to spare around 3 minutes for all of our participants to be ready. Yeah, because yeah, they need to know what's going on here. So please
Okay.
give us 3 minutes. Thank you.
So we actually designed a workbook pretty much in line with your idea of collective intelligence. So before any speaker starts speaking, we invite them to join their group and to let their concerns, their purposes, and their expectations mingle and let common threads or common interests emerge from that warm up. And eventually that will become the themes or the topics that I want to discuss about during the breakout rooms, the work cafes you're about to join. And later, some heads ups is that most of our participants, although we do have participants from Sri Lanka, from Canada, and maybe some other countries, but most of them are from Taiwan. They might be a little bit shy and not familiar in speaking English, so I hope you can tolerate that. Yeah, I think that's all. And I think Jiachen, you can send both Ada and Mulgan, Geoff, into the breakout rooms, if that's okay.
Okay, so I will send Geoff to the group A, Ada to group B, and Yachi to group C. And every 5 minutes, I will change you to another group. Is it okay?
5 minutes?
Yeah, we only have 5 minutes.
All right. That sounds
Okay.